Recently, voters in Ohio approved ballot referendum issue 1, which will enshrine the right to abortion through all 9 months for any reason in their state constitution. It was a devastating loss. Ohio is now another state that has fallen victim to well-funded misinformation campaigns. Passing with a 57% majority, this result signals two things for the pro-life movement. One, our movement's battle following the reversal of Roe is a marathon, definitely not a sprint. And two, we still missed the mark in communicating to voters the extremism of this pro-abortion proposal. So today on Explicitly Pro-Life, I'm having a conversation with some of Students for Life staff and team members to tell us on the ground what they saw, what we did in Ohio, and give recommendations for the future in the pro-life movement as these ballot referendum strategies spread to other states, because we all know the abortion lobby is desperate. Here to talk to me today is Michele Hendrickson. Michele is our Strategic Initiatives Director at Students for Life America, Jordan Moorman, our Political Field Coordinator at Students for Life Action, and Jamie Curry, our Ohio Regional Coordinator at Students for Life. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Oh.
All right. Well, welcome to Explicitly Pro-Life. You sound super excited to be here today, talking to me about what we are doing. But we do have a lot to get through, and I know we are recording this obviously after the loss in Ohio, which I wish what we fought for was simply just something like a tax reform or something like that, where lives weren't on the line. But I think that's what makes the loss in Ohio so challenging, because it's not simply a more money out of our paycheck type of issue. We know what happened in Ohio means that tens of thousands of lives will be lost. So with that, Jamie, can you tell us, you are on the ground leading all of Students for Life's efforts with our 30 plus Students for Life groups who are engaging in this campaign against issue 1. Can you tell us what we were doing at Students for Life, or tell everyone who's watching what we were doing at Students for Life, and really what you found to be working, worthy of our time, and other things that we engaged in or others engaged in, which you felt like probably wasn't working. I mean, we were up against a Goliath here. So tell us how the Davids were fighting.
Yeah, so, we got all the students involved here in Ohio, and that's what Students for Life has always been so great at, is that grassroots game. So, the other side, the people in favor of issue 1, did not have nearly the grassroots efforts that Students for Life Action was presenting in this fight. They had money, but they really lacked on that ground effort. And so we started this with our campus coordinators. And so we had about 10 to 15 of them at respective, universities all across the state of Ohio. And they were like mini me's on their campuses every single day. I wish I could be everywhere at once, but obviously that isn't the case. And so these students really led the charge at their respective schools. They were tabling, they were door knocking, they were hosting their own call nights. Every single day they were talking about issue 1 on their campus. I mean, we even had a group that was run by Olivia at Ohio University, and they were tabling 2 to 3 times a week talking about issue 1. And it was incredible to see that, and the minds change that they had and the way that they were able to engage with people. They're in Athens, Ohio. It's one of the most liberal communities in the state. Their campus is pretty crazy, and they, went on to even host a debate on issue 1. And it was so interesting to watch it and see the photos from it. The pro issue 1 side had 6 men sitting in their audience listening to them, versus us, the pro-life side, who had standing room only, a wide variety and diverse group of people. And they absolutely mopped the floor on that debate, making sure people knew the truth about this. Yeah. It's really easy when you have the truth on your side, right? And so the students here, they were just so engaged. We had our 25 social media captains who were reaching out and targeting people on social media, um, with more than 50,000 people per week that they were bringing in on a social media scale, seeing their content, talking about this issue, engaging with them. We had students knock on, you know, about 85,000 doors across the state. That's a huge number. So, of those campus coordinators, about 20 student led door knocking efforts happened. And some of those students went out and knocked consistently. Lorain County Community College went out and knocked over five, like, different times and multiple days
That's awesome.
at a time. And, even the younger students who couldn't vote were involved in this. And I think that is so critical too, because these kids can talk to their parents, they can talk to their siblings, they can go and speak in front of their
Mhm.
church. So Kalida High School, only one of them is of age to vote, but their small and mighty group of about 15 students, they held their own walk for life surrounding by issue one the week before to get people engaged and motivated and excited to go out and vote. They had people who attended their walk for life who didn't even realize we were voting on this in 3 to 4 days.
Wow.
And so, and they had about three to five
Where
hundred
were these
people who were
people at in
present.
Ohio? They attended the pro-life walk for life and didn't know there was a vote coming up?
Yeah, so it was there small, rural Ohio. It's called like Putnam County. It's really small, and it went very well in our favor.
Of course.
I think 90% of the county voted no on issue one, and I have to say these students who went out and door knocked, they couldn't even vote, did the call nights, held this walk for life, were incremental in that
Mm.
being so large in our favor.
What were you doing on campuses? So we had our late term abortion is on the ballot, the tour that we were taking on campuses. You were registering voters, changing minds. You went to several campuses with this tour. What was the result of that?
So, in about a month and a week, me and Maddie, who also works for Students for Life, went to roughly 20 universities with this late term abortion on the ballot tour. It was very successful. We were averaging like 85 to 100 deep conversations with voters in Ohio on the issue. We had multiple minds changed. And then between me and our campus coordinator students, we registered nearly 500 students to vote, which is significant because in Ohio, if you're a student here, you can vote here regardless if this is your quote unquote home state. And so we had those out of
Mm.
state students who really were like, hey, I'm paying taxes here. Hey, I'm living here. Hey, I'm probably going to live here in the future. This is really important to me. And I want to be able to vote on this and have a voice on this. And we made sure that their voice and vote was heard.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about these conversations that you were having that were changing minds. Because I think for me, the most frustrating thing of seeing your reports and hearing what you all were doing in Ohio was that we were changing minds on this issue. I felt like we didn't have the funding to scale it, but we did have a formula that was changing minds. What did that conversation look like when you were changing minds with what we know polling tells us is the most liberal, block of our electorate?
Yeah, so every conversation would go a little bit different, but the biggest thing that, we would see having these conversations on the ground is people were confused. And so, you would ask them, are you familiar with what issue one is? And they would say yes. And then they would talk about maybe an issue one we had in August, or how issue one would protect miscarriage care and life-saving treatment and things like that. And some people just thought it point blank would protect choice reasonably. Um, and so having those conversations and explaining to people, miscarriage care is already protected explicitly in Ohio Revised Code. This is not a measure on miscarriage care. This is not a measure on tubal pregnancy care or life saving care. This is about late term abortion. And can you live with yourself or be, feel okay with yourself saying, I voted yes for abortion through all 9 months for any reason. And once you sat
Mm,
down and had that conversation with someone and asked them that, they they were hesitant to be like, whoa,
yeah.
that's a lot. And so really just clarifying to people and getting down to that consistent message of this is
Mhm.
about late term abortion is really what was changing the most hearts and minds on our college campuses.
Did you talk about parental rights or any of the other messages that the pro-life movement was using?
Yeah, so I started a little bit in the beginning of this tour talking to people about parental rights. And I would say that in a certain very specific and small demographic, it would maybe work, but they were still more concerned about the late term abortion. And when I say it would maybe work, I'm talking about our Christian or Catholic schools. But our public universities, where the majority of people who are there do not have kids and really feel that they can do whatever the heck they want to do, they could care less about parental rights. And actually, it was for them something that they would tell me, well, I do think that a child should be able to have an abortion without their parents' knowledge or consent because that could be a hindrance to them exercising their rights. It's very few that happened, but it wasn't ever really in our favor with the under
Yeah.
25 age group.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be. I'm gonna bring Jordan into this conversation, Jamie. Jordan, we did some exit polling. I know Jamie was out there the whole day of the election. We had some students tabling, doing educational tabling booths before folks entered to vote, and then we had others like Jamie and students who were out at certain polling precincts doing exit polling for people who came out. And we identified ourselves as like this neutral polling company. No one knew it was a pro-life group doing this exit polling, and we targeted specifically, polling places on college campuses because we wanted to do this poll of Gen Z. Can you tell everyone what we found from that exit polling?
Well, I think the most telling statistic we got from exit polling was 85% of those who voted no on issue one prioritized limiting abortion through all 9 months. So while there were a lot of people who were talking about parental rights and they had the best of intentions, only 8% of people who voted no valued parental rights for either abortions or transgender surgery as the main motivation when voting no on issue one. So as we as pro-lifers kind of intuitively know at Students for Life, the main thing that pushed people to vote no was to stop abortion through all 9 months.
For
And
young people,
for
to
young
be
people,
fair,
yes, yeah,
this was
right,
largely. What was the percentage breakdown for the age? It was over 80% were Gen Z, right?
right. So it also shows how powerful Jamie's being out on campus, Jamie and Maddie being out on campus, and our campus coordinators, because word of mouth and conversations informed voter opinion on issue one more than any other marketing tactic.
Interesting.
So
So word
44,
of mouth.
yeah, so 44% of people that we polled that voted no reported that a friend shared information with them. And just anecdotally, we have our campus coordinators reporting stories like they texted a picture of our flyer to their pro-choice grandmother and she voted no because of that. Or a student club at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, dropping 1,500 flyers in his dormitory and getting people to vote no that way. So only 39% were informed through advertisement on TV, radio, or social media, with the majority, not the majority, but the plurality of people saying that a friend shared information with them about issue one.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of this stuff. It says 30%, 30% said they saw a display on their campus or their community, this was just huge as well. But that's really interesting. Um, this word of mouth being the number one. What about the people who voted yes, who voted pro-abortion? What did we learn from the exit polling about them?
We learned that more than half of those who voted yes on issue one did not prioritize abortion through all 9 months. So 33% of
Hmm.
those who voted in favor of issue one did so thinking abortion should be available in certain cases. So this just goes to show you the misinformation. They thought that this would allow abortion in certain cases. They didn't realize that what they were voting for was allowing abortion through all 9 months. Only 4% of people that voted yes prioritized minors' rights, not wanting parent involvement with a minor's decision to get an abortion or transgender surgery. That was only 4%. And then 15% reported that something else was their priority, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very liberal poll. I mean, this was obviously going to be a very liberal leaning poll because I'm looking at the breakdown right now. 80% of the response for Gen Z, 12% millennials. So 92% were 40 and under voters. Um, so, and then, but then on the breakdown, it was interesting. 37% Democrat, 29% independent, 29% Republican, 13% independent, 13% other. I don't know what that means. Okay, yeah. So I think that's actually really helpful. What were your insights with working with Jamie throughout this process? I know you were really engaged in, for example, the phone banking that the team was doing and creating all the accounts for the phone bankers. What are some of your insights? Just do you have anything? Did you disagree with anything Jamie said or any additions?
No, I think that the Students for Life should be proud that our messaging is so powerful. I think it's worth pointing out that back in August, our marketing team pointed out that we had the top amount of engagement about abortion in Ohio. We even beat out MSNBC in terms of our messaging. So our
We
messaging
also
is
be out the New York Times. That's more powerful than MSNBC. They're a rag, but keep
very
going.
true. So Jamie's point about reaching over 50,000 people a week with our student engagement and our social media captains is, I think, extremely important because, as you say, we beat out the New York Times.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's important that you brought that up again, Jordan, because as we were talking about Ohio and I'm thinking about this fight is a David versus Goliath battle. I think we have to be careful to not fight Goliath with Goliath like tactics because we're Davids, we're underfunded, and the media is against us. And Jamie, you and I were talking about this before this call even happened to have this podcast about how how they quoted you or used your quotes on the ground in Ohio and how they weave those into the narrative that they were trying to paint. And so I think Jordan, what you're saying about the social media coordinators is really piqued my interest, I would say, of thinking about 2024 and these other states that we're going to be engaging in with ballot referendums and presidential elections and Senate elections and important state legislative elections that Students for Life Action will be engaging in is how do we more effectively use social media? Because I saw something this weekend. There was all these pro Palestine protests happening where people are flooding the streets with anti-Semitism, like outright just anti-Semitism. And somebody was walking in New York City asking some of these protesters who were shouting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which essentially means no Israel, annihilation of Israel. And they were asking them, where did you get your information about what's happening? And they're saying TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, it's interesting. Like I think it's almost 70% of web traffic now is on smartphones, and that includes social media. So people are spending a lot of time on social media, and that you kind of become what you consume. And when you're scrolling on TikTok,
Mhm.
looking at all those political messages and political memes, you certainly can begin to adopt those viewpoints. I had a friend in college almost accidentally believe in flat Earth because they're looking at so many memes on social media. So it's
Oh my
definitely
gosh, yeah, that
extremely
that is very scary.
powerful.
That's very scary. Michele, I want to bring you into this conversation. So you lead our Dimitri Institute for Pro-Life Advancement, which is sort of our messaging think tank where we do and perform research at Students for Life that we share with the pro-life movement. Trends that we're noticing. This is where we track Planned Parenthoods on Christian campuses and use it to kick Planned Parenthoods off. So we do a lot of interesting studies with what we call IPA. But Michele, you've been working on this kind of white paper memo to the movement, especially in the states that are going to be facing this ballot referendums in 2024, as well as you lead our campaign for abortion-free cities, which is our kind of community-wide response to abortion. What are you putting together from Ohio and these past ballot referendum fights that we've seen in Kansas and other states? And then, what do you think is the advice for the rest of the movement looking into 2024?
Absolutely. We've been doing a deep dive into all of the ballot referendums leading up to this point, leading up to Ohio. So we went back and we looked at even Kansas, pro life ballot referendum attempt. And then the following four, you've got not just Ohio, but then we had Michigan, California, and Vermont all pass pro abortion ballot referendums. So we did a deep dive into what was the pro life messaging, what was the pro abortion messaging. And for the most part, at least in Michigan, California, and now Ohio, for the pro-life messaging, it's like the A word was avoided at all costs. It was so extremely vague, and some of the signs and materials didn't talk about abortion at all. It was saying that the referendum was confusing or extreme. The word extreme was used, but with no context. One was, this is expensive and unnecessary, so vote no. And then, like Jordan and Jamie discussed, it was very heavy in parental rights for Ohio. So at no point in any of the materials was abortion presented, and we really failed to discuss the matter at hand. And you saw this shift from the efforts in Kansas to these other states. In Kansas, the pro abortion side also didn't mention the A word, because at the time that didn't work for them. They really played into conservative pro-life voters' mindset against government control. So their signage said stop the ban and no more government mandates and no government control, also without saying the A word, to their benefit. And then
Wow,
Roe
that's
was
using our
reversed.
messaging from the anti-Obamacare fight against us,
Yep. So
for
you look at all
sure.
their yard signs. It didn't say stop the abortion ban. It just said stop the ban. And all of their advertisements, all of their commercials were no more government mandates. So you've confused all of these very conservative voters that, this is right after COVID. Okay, I agree. No more government mandates, no more government control. And that just really misinformed them to vote against their own values. But then the pro life side didn't do any favors of not talking about abortion either. So then you really had these pro life voters not sure about what they were voting for. And of course, that failed. But then the shift happens following Roe's reversal, and we get to November
Mhm.
2022 with Michigan, California, and Vermont. And Michigan and California, the pro abortion side championed the A word. They wanted to talk about abortion because they now played off of the public's fear of loss, the loss of their rights. And so now you see yard signs that say stop the abortion ban. They're not afraid to put that on there. You've got a very consistent messaging of reproductive freedom for all, and they're using that to their advantage. One anomaly that I was finding in talking with people from Vermont, their signs actually said no late term abortion. And I'm starting to do this research and realize, hey, they're actually, talking about the issue at hand. They're messaging exactly as they should be. So what went wrong in Vermont? Why did they, lose by a landslide? And I think it gets into the age-old saying that politics is downstream from culture. And that's embedded into a lot of our
Especially in
recommendations.
Vermont, which is, I think, the
Exactly.
least Christian state, the highest Wiccan state, and certainly isn't a state that you think
Very.
about of having, like, a strong Republican conservative coalition.
They really didn't do the work in advance to prepare for something like this. And in my own home state of Maryland, I'm afraid it's going that exact same way, that, we really haven't raised up the grassroots and culture of life over decades. And now here we are, unprepared for these battles. But really, what I want to get to at the end of this paper is some hope and some recommendations that we can apply now, that it is not too late. If your state has one of these ballot referendums coming up, there is work to do, good work that can win the day. If your state does not have a ballot referendum, you better still get busy, because we saw what happened in Vermont, that, that coalition wasn't there, that culture of life wasn't there. And how do we do it? What is the blueprint for that? So one of our strongest recommendations outside of, you know, clear strategic messaging. We have to talk about abortion. We have to hit on late term abortion. That's going to convince most people. Our next recommendation is community support and grassroots activism. So, in the campaign for abortion free cities, that's exactly what we do. Students for Life, we've spent more than a decade raising up student leaders. They've all graduated. We have this amazing group of alumni that are out in their communities and a ton of community leaders who just want their next steps. They want their marching orders. What can I do to take back my town? Right? Their circle of influence has now left campus and is out in their community. And so the Campaign for Abortion-Free Cities, we give them that blueprint, we give them those marching orders, and we make professionally developed research-based tools to get into their hands, get to the doors, get to voters, and have conversations before these ballot referendums even come up. And we've done just some experimenting with that in Maryland and some other states for how can we bring the conversation of ballot referendums to the door, and how can we meet the middle? Because we've done a ton of research on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so interesting. When you think about, I was reading a bunch of different reaction pieces to Ohio, and I think one of the consensus things, not everyone agrees in our movement about the messaging on parental rights versus talking about late term abortion, but I think everyone agrees that the care aspect of, it goes back to why we even started our institute was because of the pro life brand problems that we were seeing of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and America does not know how much we care as a pro-life movement, which changes, it affects whether or not they're going to listen to us about abortion and the violence of the abortion industry and all the evil Planned Parenthood commits because they don't actually believe the words that are coming out of our mouth. And so I think that's what's so interesting of if we can do that groundwork of going door to door, and telling our community members what the pro-life movement is. I mean, explain to everyone who is watching this podcast what the Campaign for Abortion-Free Cities is doing. It's a pretty simple concept, really. It's door to door, person to person, having a conversation. But I think the most powerful part is that having that conversation.
Absolutely. The Campaign for Abortion-Free Cities is able to move culture at a very local level. So it is empowering that community leader to take back their town, to get out to the doors, to get out to the community and have those conversations. And it's all research based. So, like you mentioned, the Institute for Pro-Life Advancement, we've done research studies on how to win over the middle, how to attract them to the conversation in the first place, and how to shift them towards the pro-life position. And what's been really fun is to watch campaign leaders through the Abortion Free Cities campaign take that and put that into action and watch these minds change, because we're going to the door with women-centered messages first, ready to serve her, ready to serve families. We want to make sure people are aware of their local pregnancy resource center. And from there, we keep the conversation going. And this summer, what was really fun was we kind of A/B tested this conversation. How do we get to people at the door and change their mind specifically to a ballot referendum? So we had one group of people this summer go out with our supportive services messaging. We literally wagoned physical materials around. So we filled wagons with baby items, with diapers and formula, wagging it around to people, knock, knock, knock. Hey, we were just wondering if you needed any baby supplies or women's supplies or new mom supplies. And people were so shocked. Like right now, for free? Yep. Oh, I need size 4 diapers. That's okay. We'll go to the store. And it was just meeting people where they're at. And just like you said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that was established in one moment, that the pro-lifer cares. And from there, you could have a conversation. And we did this in Bethesda, Maryland, where we could say, hey, and did you know, unfortunately, a lot of people would think abortion's the answer. And we've got abortion coming up on our ballot through all 9 months of pregnancy. What do you think about that? Then we could engage in conversation. We had another group of people just go to the door ready to talk about abortion, which on its face, everything we're saying, that sounds great. We should be able to talk about abortion through all 9 months, and people should want to talk to us and they should hate it. But you know what? When we didn't have that care and compassion piece, we didn't get anyone to really open the door or keep it open. It was a lot of door slam. Oh, I see where you're going with this. I'm going to shut the door. I'm going to shut the door. And so in both cases, we wanted to talk about abortion through all 9 months and, hey, I bet you wouldn't support this. But in that first scenario, we're leading with compassion and we're meeting them with resources and we're showing that pro-life people care. Then it's you earn your place in that conversation. There is so much rapport that we have to build in a short amount of time, and a lot of damage to the pro-life brand that we have to make up for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why we actually partnered with Every Life Diapers, who's now going to be donating diapers to our abortion free city door to door campaigns. because we know how powerful just handing some diapers out to a family can be to start that conversation. By the way, if you go to everylife.com and order your diapers and use SFLA10, you get 10% off. A little plug there. But I guess going back to, so we have this campaign. We know if we can get these campaigns going in all of the states, especially they're having ballot referendums, it would do a world of difference and hopefully turning our communities to listen to the pro-life messaging and the warning about the extremism of these abortion ballot referendums. So I think the first step is, if you're not involved with abortion-free cities and you know about referendums coming to your state, you need to get it started. You need to recruit other captains in other cities to engage in this work. And we have, the political technology, the door-to-door app that you can use. We have the script that's founded on research, as Michele mentioned. Everything is there to start promoting resources and what the pro-life movement is. So that's step one. You can go to abortionfreecities.org and sign up. Michele and her team will be helping. Michele, what else can groups be thinking about as these ballot referendums come to their cities?
We're noticing every state is different, and it's important to engage early. And so there are states like Maryland that the ballot referendum process had to go through the legislature, and we were there every year as they try to propose this and try to defeat it early. And in doing that, we were able to build a pretty good coalition of leaders within this state. And I would highly recommend that to any other state. If you notice that maybe your state needs to gather petition signatures, as we're seeing in Florida, right? And now we want to hear messages decline to sign. And we want to make sure that voters are aware that, hey, this petition is circulating around. Don't get confused. Don't fall for misinformation. It's about this. It's about late-term abortion. Decline to sign it and get ahead of even the petition signature process so that it's not on your ballot in the first place. And
That's a good idea.
you take
So
those
decline
messages
to
to the
sign.
doors, to the communities, decline to sign. You have to get involved early. Don't wait.
So how can people get materials about decline to sign?
So we are leading 2 different cohorts within the Campaign for Abortion-Free Cities, and one of them is going to be dedicated to this public policy work. So when you're on the Abortion-Free Cities website, abortionfreecities.org/start, and after you sign up and you kind of get onboarded through that process, we've made everything simple for you, and you get literally a campaign in a box. So everything is already professionally designed. You're going to get the yard signs, you're going to get the door hangers, and you're going to get professional training and everything that you already listed, Kristan. And we meet with these teams monthly. We have office hours for them to check in. We don't want you to reinvent the wheel. We want to make sure you are equipped with all of these research-based materials, again,
Awesome.
professionally designed items. We make sure that everything is at base cost. We will design it for you. We will print it for
That's
you. We will
awesome.
ship it to you, and you just pay for what you get.
We're awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Jamie, you had an interesting idea about this decline to sign. What were you guys doing in Ohio? Because you were saying that these collectors of signatures were these out-of-state people. They're getting paid like $20 a name. They can sign up because in a lot of these states, some states you can get a ballot referendum because of the state legislature, but in Ohio and Florida, other states, you actually have to go and collect physical signatures. And so these people come in and get paid per signature. What's one technique you found in Ohio to work to kind of delay the person from collecting a bunch of signatures?
Yeah, so the most likely place that we engaged with these individuals is the college campuses, because the college campuses are flooded with multiple people. And quite frankly, a college student will sign anything if there's an incentive. And even we were watching, the incentive for these college students was, hey, if I sign this, they'll leave me alone. And so what we would do is we would go in and pose as interested individuals in what they were doing, which I actually was interested. I want to know where you're from, why you're doing this, how much you're getting paid, what you're telling people. And then next thing you know, I've been having a 30-minute conversation with the guy from Florida who has been shipped in by the abortion industry to collect these signatures. And he's telling people that viability is 6 weeks. He has no idea what he's talking about. But the longer we would talk to these people and engage with them, the less they were able to collect signatures. And then we could also, if we would kind of hover around them, when they would try to go to someone to get a signature, we would tell them the truth about what you're about to sign. You sign that, you're putting your name behind abortion through all 9 months for any reason.
That's
Are you
awesome. I
okay with
love
that?
that. I love that idea. That's really smart. Thank you, Jamie, for that. I would never have thought about that, but that makes sense. Just make it so they can't collect signatures. What else? Going back to you, Michele. So we have get involved early, talking about resources in your communities, because we know that's a factor when you look at exit polling and views of voters. Decline to sign campaigns. What else do folks need to know before we wrap this up?
I would just add on, I know we hit on social media and online pieces. I think there's a needed emphasis or needed priority in proper advertisements and website design. Uh, we don't do ourselves any favors if we're not putting the information out there and above the fold. I know a lot of the strategies that we've given really are low cost as they should be. But if we're going to put money somewhere, or if groups are able to put money somewhere, to get a good ad on Google and make sure that your information is being found and early, and that it's clear. We saw a lot of ads come through in these other states that, they bothered to pay for the ads and they made it up to the top, but then it didn't say much and it didn't inform voters. So to make sure our messaging is really clear online, and that our websites are just really clean. And I think that that takes just some good communication with our coalitions in
Yeah.
all of these states. I'm really excited for this white paper to finish up so we can get it out to the pro-life leaders to be able to read through all of these recommendations and everything that we've learned.
Yeah, I mean, that's just SEO. That's that's basic business advertising that you've got to we ran an ad the last few days in Ohio. We were given a grant of about $5,000 and we had tens of thousands of clicks, which meant, and there could have been a lot more had we had more funding, but that to me showed us there were people going online the day of election and were typing in issue 1 trying to figure out where they stood. We needed to be there. We need to be earning those clicks and pointing to them to the truth and accurate information. So I think you're right on that. I think you're right on talking about, we have to talk about abortion. We have to talk about it early. You guys have given me such great information. I think Jordan talking about the exit polling was excellent. We're knowing that young people, even though they voted overwhelmingly pro-abortion, they weren't necessarily voting overwhelmingly pro-abortion because they're 100% for abortion. And so that really gives us clues as well as how do we message this. I was thinking the other day about what do pro-lifers, once these bad ballot referendums pass your state and you're totally outspent, what else can pro-lifers do? And I just want to leave you with a couple of ideas before I wrap this up. Launch a campaign for abortion-free cities. I want you to launch one, before a ballot referendum, preferably, but you can launch a campaign for abortion-free cities effort after a ballot referendum, because the work still goes on of changing minds at the door, referring women and families in crisis to local, free, nonviolent healthcare resources. That's changing the culture and saving lives. And you can do that regardless of what the state laws or what amendments would add to your constitution. I also think it's important for governors, especially when I'm thinking about Ohio. We started this conversation before the election, but we're obviously going back to it now. That the state legislature and the governor can actually take action to take away the licenses of abortionists. Because the governor or the state legislature in most states is responsible for the medical licensing board. If an abortion industry is engaging in chemical abortion pill distribution, they're most likely violating the federal law, the Comstock Act, which is still in effect. That's justification to strip their medical license away. That's something that needs to be explored. I also think we need to be talking about chemical abortion. It's a leading cause of death in our country, the number one type of abortion method right now. Having a ballot, referendum pass and this right to abortion in your constitution is not a right to dangerous chemical abortion that leads to injury, infertility, and death of women. And so states can start acting to prevent the flow of chemical abortion drugs in their state, whether from out of state or distributed divided amongst the abortionists there. I think we need to start talking about a strong message about motherhood. I think, Michele, you mentioned about some of the messaging. What was it? Ohio, you talked about the reproductive freedom for all message.
Yes, as far as
Yeah.
pro-abortion side, it was freedom for all,
Yeah,
stop the ban, and it's a fear, playing off their fear of loss, losing something that
that's right.
they've been told they've earned or deserved,
And I
and then
think
who doesn't love freedom?
Yeah, I mean that's I think you saw that too, Jamie, in Ohio and Jordan, is they were using the word freedom. We're using parental rights. When you have those two things balanced, freedom's going to win. And so I think we need to start talking about. I was talking to Abby Johnson about this the other day about really elevating motherhood, because we saw in the 70s this very concerted campaign from the feminist movement to de-elevate motherhood, elevate single womanhood, and they did that very deceptively in pictures and how mothers were depicted versus single women. Single women have it all together. Mothers are disheveled because they can't handle balancing all the responsibilities in our lives. I think we have to start elevating motherhood, because certain words are not going to compete with freedom, and they do that on purpose. They obviously don't want to talk about abortion. And then I think the final thing we have to do, regardless of what state you're in, is we need to start addressing the rape messaging. I've heard a lot from analysts that if only Ohio had a provision that allowed abortion in cases of rape, this would have been a different outcome. And I don't think that's necessarily the truth. When we're on campuses, when I'm on campuses having this conversation, when somebody brings up the question about what about rape, I will set that issue aside and say, okay, let's set that aside. Let's say our laws have an exception for the child conceived in rape, that you think a child conceived in rape should be aborted. Are you with me the other 97% of times that abortions are committed? Are you against the other 97% of abortions? I think I've only ever had one person to say yeah, because the most of the times they'll go, but what about, and then they turn into another reason. What about bodily autonomy? What about foster care? What about it's always another circumstance to justify. And so what we know from our real-time conversations is the abortion lobby and their advocates use this highly charged issue of rape to justify 100% of abortions. And I think it's despicable why they do it, and why they're trotting out the horror of rape to justify 100% of abortions. But they feel like they have this like moral high ground, and that's going to shut down the conversation. I think we have to be talking about those who were conceived in rape, incredible human beings that have built an amazing legacy. Folks like Ryan Baumberger, who are out there, whose courageous mothers chose life for their children, and to talk about these children as the humans that they are, not just simply say, oh, let's go back and promise in the middle, like 2 weeks before an election, that we're going to add laws that allow for abortion in cases of rape, which, by the way, undermines our entire moral argument that we're making in the pro-life movement, that every child conceived is precious and at the very minimum has the right not to be killed. So anyway, those are my recommendations for how we move forward in Ohio and across the nation in this post-Roe era that we know is a marathon. It's certainly not a sprint. Jamie and Jordan and Michele, I want to thank you guys for your insights today. I know there was a lot we had to get through with so many of us on this podcast, but I want to thank you all for all your incredible work in Ohio, especially you, Jamie, who is on the campuses carrying the brunt of this with our students, getting spit upon, getting threatened. You all did such incredible work, and we are so, so proud of you and the entire pro-life generation in Ohio. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Explicitly Pro-Life, and I'll see you next week.